Welcome to Gary Sachs, Chairman and CEO, City and Docklands Group, in conversation with David Jacobson, Young Norwood Property Committee Co-Chair.
Hi Gary, how are you?
All right, thanks.
I suppose in terms of the formal stuff first, it's best to kind of get an overview. If you want to give me a brief overview of who you are for the people who don't know who you are, and a bit about City and Docklands.
Okay, so first I'll start off by saying that it's great to be Chairman and CEO of City and Docklands, but in relation to Norwood, I'm also a trustee, and I have been, I think, for now 15 or 16 years. And I guess that's really why I'm here rather than the City and Docklands. And actually, for me, that's more important. But so City and Docklands, I'll give you a very short story. I came from South Africa, having lived in South Africa in 1987. Finished university and kind of didn't see any future for the country, and I left. I went to America for 9 months, messed around, came to England, and it was really a case of go wherever you could at that time. And
you had no real clear picture of where you were going to end up, even at that stage, in terms of where you were going to live. You didn't have
nothing.
A dream.
My priority was to leave South Africa. So I left. My father had a furniture business in South Africa, so I kind of came here, and I wanted to try maybe use what I could. I came here literally with no money. So I kind of knew the furniture industry. I knew of a few people here because my father had supplied a couple of chain stores here with furniture. So, and I started trying to sell furniture, and eventually I took a little furniture shop in Kilburn on a side road, Cambridge Park Avenue. It was about 1,500 square foot, and I was selling lounge suites for £399 and carpets. But what I noticed was there were three things in England that there were many more of than anywhere else I'd ever been. Okay. And it wasn't like I took a gap year. I traveled a little bit, but not that much. But what you noticed were there were lots of pubs, there were lots of churches, and thousands of estate agents. So what I started doing, I started going around to all the estate agents in Maida Vale and St. John's Wood, going to them and saying, would you like to buy furniture for if you have a tenant, etc. Because at the time, a lot of flats were unfurnished, and you couldn't repossess a flat. It was more difficult to repossess a flat if the tenant's furniture was in rather than the landlord's. Okay, because if they left their goods and chattels, they always had a right to go in. And what I did was I went to the estate agent and said, not only will I put the furniture in, I'll give you a commission. Bang, hit the nail on the head, and suddenly I started building up a business. I then started hearing that there were a lot of Chinese people buying in England through the Hong Kong exhibitions. The developers were going out, and I took myself...
What year period was it? What kind of...
This is probably 1992, 93. And you have to bear in mind, I had a business which was probably turning over £120,000 a year. It was quite interesting because I heard a great comment. I went to the Hong Kong High Commission, was in Dover Street at the time. I took the equivalent of the Yellow Pages, and I took all the estate agents out of there. And I literally cold called in Hong Kong. And the last call I did, I met a guy who had just sold 20 flats behind the Channel 4 building in Victoria. And he gave me an order for 20 flats of furniture. So, you know, from a business doing 140, 150,000 pound a year, I got one order for 200,000 pounds. I used to go to Hong Kong every 3-4 weeks, etc. Then I realized that if I could be on the exhibitions with the developers, it would be an easier route for me to get the business. So I started ingratiating myself with the developers, and I have to say, probably my main mentor for this is Stephen Conway from Galliard Home. And Stephen really gave me the biggest break because he allowed me to go into the exhibitions, and we sold furniture. It was really great. But how I actually got involved with Norwood was I was going on the Galliard exhibitions, and they had this guy that was working for them that kind of kept on threatening that if we didn't give him a backhand, pretty much, that we couldn't go on the exhibitions. Anyway, I got to a point where it was like really annoying for me. We weren't making that big profits. And I actually went to Stephen's brother, Roy, and I actually said to him, I said, I can't do this. And Roy said, okay, fully understand. I think the guy lost his job, if I remember correctly. And at the time, I think we owed him £10,000. And Roy Conway said to me, I'll tell you what you're going to do. Do the £10,000, make a draft to a charity called Norwood, because Roy was running a golf day. Okay, gave it to Roy. And as I was walking out his office, he said, by the way, do you play golf? And I said, no. He said, well, that doesn't matter. You're coming onto the golf committee with us. and that's actually how I started, because the golf committee went from like raising £3,000 a time to suddenly raising £13,000 with my 10,000. And I got involved and got some friends in, and we got it, I think now it's £60,000. And David Gelman, who's the sales director of Galliard, still runs it. And that's how I got involved with Norwood. But then carrying on my story is that I then started at the exhibitions buying a flat for like £1,000 reservation fee. And hey ho, I was selling them the next day for a profit. As I did that, I then got bolder. I bought a whole development. I came up with the name City and Docklands, stuck it over the developer's
Where
name.
was the development?
It was in Lisson Grove. It was 65 flats, sold them all in 1 week in bar 9. Okay, I then did a deal. Stephen Conway had a site which I sold on his behalf to a developer, the guy that was developing Lisson Grove. Did a really good deal, but agreed a deal to buy back the stock, the finished stock. Okay, Stephen said, you'll never do this deal. I said, Stephen, please don't sign the deal until I've signed the deal. I went in with Galliards, we went in, and this was, just to give an idea, a timeline, this was in just the weekend, about a month before September the 11th happened. Okay. So development Canary Central and Canary Wharf, we bought 418 flats, and to give you an idea on price, £330 a square foot. It was like we put down £500,000 as a deposit with an agreement to bring it up to 10% over 2 years. We went to Hong Kong, and we sold the weekend before September 11th, I think 120 apartments. Wow. In the meantime, we also sold the furniture. And at that time, I'd already started Life Residential.
Maybe just give the watchers a very...
So Life Residential, it's a residential management company managing 4,500 properties. But anyway, so going back to that building, we did it. September 11th happened. We went to South Africa to do an exhibition on the Wednesday after the Tuesday, in the most morbid flight. But unbelievably, we sold another 100 flats in South Africa. What happened then was interest rates dropped. The market went crazy because at that time there weren't the restrictions on mortgages. And I think we had sold 400 of the 418 flats within 6 months. Wow. At the end, we were sitting with £11 million of deposits before we had to, and we'd only paid £500,000. So anyway, that was my start.
But you were still, at this point, you were still running the furniture company as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah. That was my main business.
It kind of segues nicely, that overview. Thank you for it. To my next question, which was, I suppose, what's been your kind of career high and your career low?
I guess actually the building that I'm doing is a career high because it is a seriously substantial building. And for an individual company without external debt to be doing this and keeping stock is a huge thing.
And obviously, the last 4 or 5 months has been a huge sea change in the economy, in the world, in every facet of life. How's your business and real estate, I suppose, in a wider purpose, been affected in your view in the last 4, 5, 6 months?
So our sector in particular, I think we've done okay. So first of all, and it's all about timing. Okay, I refer, one of my other mentors was Nate Kirsch, who invested with me during the credit crunch to help us fund a building. And he said to me, he said, Gary, you know what, we've checked you out, you're okay, but I'll do the deal with you. I don't know how clever or stupid you are, but even stupid people can make money in property, just don't sell it. Okay, another lead up to what we're doing. So if we were having to stabilize our building that we build in Park Royal, which is 701 units, of which we're keeping 400, I probably would be giving you a different answer. Okay. What I can tell you about our market is, in our particular business, we are in the construction phase. Okay. So we won't be finishing this building for 2 years. So nothing really changes. The interesting part is that our cladding for the building comes from Wuhan. So we already started feeling the pain in November. Okay. And interestingly enough, we've managed to catch up, but we're struggling now to get supplies of cladding, not because they're not making them, because all the shipping companies are booked. So you can't book a container. Or you can imagine there's a backlog of goods coming out of China, which we have a very long, it's a 4-year build period. We're 2 years into it. We should catch up. We think the estimate's probably a month behind. That's all costed in, etc. More importantly is the rental market, which is what our foundation of our business is. And in Life Residential, we have phenomenal data. So we found that our rent collections which are usually about 99 to 100% strong, drop down to about 97, and the differential 2-3% all on payment plans. So actually we've had no bad debt, which is amazing because it's showing that residential property is really a blue chip investment.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you could buy a Tesco's or any big brand, and bang, they throttling their landlords now. We have a restaurant business. We've just opened. I'll give myself another kick. We own a business called Wingman's. We've just opened up in Soho. It's rampacked. Soho's rampacked. People have forgotten. People want to forget. Okay.
You've now gone into more flexible working. Do you think that will impact how you build residential developments going forward? Will you create more kind of office spaces, home office spaces? Do you think that will be a necessity?
In short, no. Okay, because I think what's happened is that people are sitting at home on the internet looking at nice country houses and saying, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And then you get back into the work. I mean, I've been coming to the office now already for 4 weeks. Most of our staff are back. I have a couple of vulnerable people that, you know, guy with diabetes that I've said, you can't come back. And I think he's ready to come back. I must tell you, but just don't be stupid. For what it's worth, don't be stupid. So we've tried to think of community engagement. I'll give an example.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's your number one amenity? What do you think? Gym? Is it a gym?
No, we've got lots of amenities, but it's thinking out the box, right? So I've got this 54-story tower and a 45-story tower, okay? And you think, what are we going to do? It's got some a staircase, which is the emergency staircase, which is kind of a concrete thing. What we're doing is we're going to paint it in a running track and have a vertical running track.
Yeah.
Okay. We've actually gone to the point where we're putting in software where everything's done on your phone in the development. Okay, so when you go, there's nodes. So when you go up a staircase, it will monitor that you've been up the staircase. And we're saying to our tenants, if you will get a refund. So like for every stair, we haven't done the numbers yet, but for every staircase you go up, you're getting 1 penny back off your rent. It's socially acceptable. It keeps things acceptable. So those are amenity space. I think it's more about creating a community rather than spending money on fancy things. I would rather spend the money on great concierges that you walk into your flat. Oh, David, welcome home.
Well, I was going to ask, obviously, again, I can't make any assumptions. I don't know, but I assume that you're not doing this every day to luckily, you know, pay the bills. So what still drives you now? Because you're building these towers.
Trust me, David, I am still doing it to pay the bills. It's just what happens is your bills get bigger. No, I guess now it's the satisfaction of doing a good job. And actually of giving something different. Look, you must remember that the path that I'm going in my business makes it harder for me than easier. Because in the property development business, as a private investor, where you're not taking institutional money, and don't get me wrong, we borrow like from the big insurance companies, but on a debt basis rather than an equity basis. Until you get off the roundabout, you never see any money. Okay, because you're accumulating assets. So unless you refinance, which means you're increasing debt, or you sell, you never actually see the cash. So you're always fighting against cash. So you do go to work because you have to pay the bills, and you stay on top of it because you have to achieve that.
Have you told your kids to go and get professions first and then go in on their own? Have you said go and get real life experience, maybe a mixture of both?
What I've done, and I say to my kids, go and do what's going to make you happy and do what you're going to do. What I can empower you is if my kid is going to do, my second eldest is going to do he's doing his master's at Edinburgh in psychology. He's not going to go into business, okay? He's the most empathizing, nicest guy you could meet. If he wants to be a social worker, okay, and earn £100 a week, okay, I said to him, do it, but make sure you do the best job possible. And I'll ensure that your children, if they want to go to private school, you want to go to, you still can. That's, I guess, the gift that I'm giving to my kids, the ability of choice. Not for them to say, I'm going to do nothing, and I'm going to be a layabout, and I'm going to live off whatever money. And I keep telling them, okay, don't kid yourself. We could still go bust. You know, the world can change in a minute. That's one thing coronavirus should let everybody understand, that one day is one thing and the next day is another thing.
And on that note, Guy, I wanted to say thank you so much on behalf of myself, on Norwood. I've really enjoyed it. It's been
David,
more than informative.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it as well. It's allowed me to do my favorite thing, which is talk a lot.
Yeah. And
And
show off.
if any of the young Norwood people ever want to come and see our business and look through and do advice, I'm always open.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'm sure I'll see you soon.